There's a couple things. I think so. The states that were impacted here, I think there's 6 or 7 states that bore the brunt of Beryl, Helene, and Milton. Those states actually, oddly enough, are slightly below the national average of 6% pen rate for home standby. So when we're just talking HSB for a second, while they're not materially below, like California is per the as compared to the national average, they're still below. So in terms of the upside, I think the interesting thing is we have good dealer representation in those markets because they are markets we've sold into in the past. Obviously Texas has had a number of high priority events. So Beryl hits. That said, we've added a lot of dealers in Texas. We said of the 400 dealers we've added, over the last year, a good chunk of those are coming out of Texas. We would expect to see in the fourth quarter dealer counts improve, probably coming out of Florida and the Carolinas. Those are going to grow. But I think just going back to the core of your question, putting it in perspective. So we've always said these events can provide between $50 to $100 million impact in the current year, depending on the timing of the event, right? And so the later timing of the event in the year, the less of that 50 to 100 you're going to be able to get. So if you add up all 3 events, that would put your range somewhere between 150 to 300 million upside. We said that the upside we're going to experience this year is around 200 from these events, right? So I think we're kind of right where we think we should be, with some of that probably spilling over into 2025. And we got a lot of time between now and then before we give kind of proper formal guidance around that. We're going to watch a lot of things, but we're ramping our production. So what you're going to see in Q4, based on our guidance update, is really based on what we can get out of the factories in Q4. It's a combination of our supply chain and our factories. I will say this, from a historical perspective, we've added a lot of capacity, right? So when we brought online Trenton, South Carolina, which is a mirror image of our Whitewater, Wisconsin facility, that really effectively doubled our HSB capacity. So our ability to ramp more quickly, I think is important, right? So lead times today for these products are around 4 to 8 weeks, depending on the node. And that's probably as high as they'll probably get. As we ramp our production throughout the quarter here, we think we're going to catch that. And we think we'll bring that into a more normal looking place, as we get into 2025. Now that's, of course, assuming there aren't any other major events that happen right between now and then. Obviously the extreme nature of these types of events and the weather and just the rapid intensification of these hurricanes and some of the things that we're seeing in terms of the extremities of air temperature and water temperature, I think is important. So I think putting in perspective, though, we're able to ramp quicker. I think that what we've seen out of these events kind of is right down the middle of the fairway in what we would have expected. We're encouraged by the fact that we do have good dealer representation in the markets, and I think our brand is well represented in these markets as well. And you asked one other part of that question, Mike, which was the spillover effect of the areas outside of the markets impacted by this. I think, interestingly enough, if you just look at October here, when we look at home consultations, we're seeing a nice lift outside of those 6 or 7 states that were impacted by these events this year. So I would say it's more broadly impacting our demand, which is great. I think, in fact, outside of Canada, I think every other region in the U.S. was an easier comp. But Canada was a tougher comp from last year. But every other region so far this quarter, we saw nice growth. And in fact, I would just one last point on this. I mean, October was not done yet. We still got today to go. But October is likely to be a record month for in-home consultations for us. And that is, I think that's an important data point as we think about, not only the impact of Q4 as we've laid out here this morning, but also the impact on the continued awareness of the category. And as we kind of build that new and higher baseline for the category as we go into 2025.